Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon news update for November 12th, 2024. First off today, President Russell M. Nelson of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints dedicated the Deseret Peak, Utah Temple in an afternoon session on Sunday, November 10th, 2024. When I contemplate the privilege of dedicating the Deseret Peak, Utah Temple this weekend, I am filled with awe at all the Lord is doing for his people, President Nelson said. When I was born, there were just 6 operating temples in the church. The Deseret Peak Temple will be the 200th in the world. Just think of it. It took the church until the year 2000 to dedicate the first 100 temples, and now, just 24 years later, we are dedicating the second 100. The Lord is truly hastening his work. I'm filled with gratitude for the Lord's mercy in guiding us to bring temples closer to members of the church throughout the world. I hope that our members in the Deseret Peak Temple District will not just treasure the addition of a beautiful building to their community, but will arrange their lives so that they worship and serve in the house of the Lord as regularly as possible, he said. The temple is a place of peace and power, and spending time there will literally change a person's life. I promise you today that your time in the temple will bless your life in ways nothing else can, he said. My promise to you is that as you sincerely seek Jesus Christ, you will find him in the temple. This is his house. You will feel his mercy. You will find answers to your most vexing questions. You will better comprehend the joy of his gospel. That was said by President Nelson, which means the prophet just promised that in the temple you will find answers to your most vexing questions. I went to the temple many times and never got any answers to my most vexing questions. Here are a few. Why did Joseph Smith coerce young girls to have relations with him and later be sealed to him behind his wife's back? Why isn't there any DNA evidence to corroborate the Book of Mormon? Why, instead of changing the temple ceremony so often, didn't God just give it to Joseph Smith correctly the first time? How can we trust prophets when so many things past prophets have declared doctrine have been disavowed by current prophets? And so many more. Feel free to add your vexing questions in the comments. Maybe a true believing Mormon member can take them to the temple for us and get some answers. After all, God's one true prophet on the earth just promised that that would happen. Let's watch a quick video of the event.
We think of moments when we can say hallelujah, and for us, this is one of those moments.
President Russell M. Nelson of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints dedicated the Deseret Peak, Utah Temple on Sunday, November 10th, 2024.
When we think about what's happening today, this is really unprecedented. We have a 100-year-old prophet of the Lord.
Why'd they cut out his walker in this photo?
Dedicating a temple. And you add to that the 200th temple in this dispensation being dedicated.
This temple is southwest of Salt Lake City in Tooele, Utah, and is now the 200th operating temple for the Church of Jesus Christ. The 100th house of the Lord was dedicated in 2000. Now, 24 years later, there are 367 temples in operation, under construction, or announced around the world.
This, for me, is a heavenly manifestation of our Heavenly Father's love for all of his children throughout the whole world.
President Nelson was joined by his wife, Wendy, and Elder Stevenson of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles and his wife, Lisa.
President Nelson, he invites us to attend the temple as our circumstances permit. With 367 temples around the world, when those temples are completed, 95% of the members of the church will live within 2 hours or 200 kilometers of the temple.
It's obviously a great experience to be there with the prophet. At the end, he stopped and looked out at everybody, and there's all kinds of people that I know from the valley. And he said, I love you. And you could feel it.
Feeling the presence of Jesus Christ in our life is a great blessing. And this is his house, and he is here. So he's here in our valley, and it's wonderful.
I noticed a few things. First of all, every article of the event says that President Nelson dedicated the temple, but I could not find one single video of him talking during the dedication. Did he actually speak at the dedication, or was it a pre-recorded message? And if it was a pre-recorded message, was it because he has to record messages on his good days and sit quietly on his bad days? Also, Gary Stevenson said, now with 367 temples around the world, when those temples are completed, 95% of the members of the church will live within 2 hours or 200 kilometers of the temple. I would love to see some documentation to back that up. The leaders of the church can sort of say whatever they want. because they're never required to provide numbers to back up these claims. And I am certain that active true-believing members are loving that statement by Gary Stevenson. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets quoted quite often in sacrament meetings for the next year or so. Now let's go to the ex-Mormon subreddit to learn how things are going in Provo for one person who no longer believes in Mormonism. They said, "I work at a startup based in Provo that the vast majority, 95%, are Mormon," and then in parentheses it says a 100% Christian. "As such, I have been in meetings where we started with a prayer. I have been asked over our company messaging software to fast and pray for investments to come in. I have been in meetings where leadership debated adding following Christ as one of the company values. We're a tech company that has nothing to do with religion. I'm fearful that I will be fired or shut out if they discover I'm not active. But that's not the point of this post. Today, something really pissed me off. We've been struggling to have our revenue cover our costs and therefore have started seeking outside investment in capital. It's been a slow process, so the majority of the company hasn't received payroll for 3 months in a row, almost 4 now. Today, I was talking to our CEO who is trying to sell the app at a trade show in Boston. He told me that he decided not to attend the conference on Sunday because he felt that going to church was more important. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. His entire workforce is piling up credit card debt, using food stamps, starting side hustles, and applying for new jobs. We've put significant work into this product and faith in him to sell it. But at a crucial time period that determines whether we survive or not, he decided not to sell. I'm so frustrated. But I understand this TBM mindset. He truly believes that God cares about his livelihood. He truly believes that if he sacrifices selling for one day, the company will be blessed for it. Part of me wishes the company fails so that he learns that no amount of prayer, fasting, or Sabbath day observance will save the company. But the company failing kind of screws me over too, so I don't know. I've said this before and I'll say it again. When I was paying tithing to the church, I just had 10% less money. Now let's go to Google, where searches for the name Fanny Alger have skyrocketed since the release of the movie Heretic. Hugh Grant, who plays the main character in Heretic, mentions Fanny Alger while questioning the truth claims of the Mormon Church. And if you explore Google Trends, you will notice a sharp increase in searches for Fanny Alger since the movie was released last week. If only Google could tell us if this is active, non-believing, or never Mormons who are searching this. If it's active Mormons, we also might see a sharp rise in defections here in the future. Now we're going to go to kuer.org for an article that says, "The number of unmarried members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has grown over the last couple of decades." In a new post for the Latter-day Saint blog Times and Seasons, data scientist Stephen Cranny found a quarter of Latter-day Saint adults in 2023 have never been married. That's up 11% since 2007. And that makes the church's recent policy changes for singles no small thing. Church leaders said unmarried men over 40 with no dependent children at home can now serve full-time missions. It could help older, single men who struggle in a church that places a high value on marriage. Since the announcement, former singles Bishop Richard Ostler has seen memes making fun of these men. The inference is they're not first-class citizens, or this, a mission, is kind of a default assignment, said Ostler, host of the Listen, Learn, and Love podcast and author of a book series by the same name. Older, unmarried men are often stigmatized in the church. Ostler said sometimes people view them, or they view themselves, as not complete and whole until they're married. He doesn't think it's something in the doctrine after all. He said Jesus wasn't married. I don't really like it when people make a distinction between doctrine and culture in the church, because I have yet to find a culture in the church that wasn't first started by a high-up leader saying something that spurred the culture. If unmarried men in the church are seeing themselves as not complete and whole, it's because of what is being said over the pulpit in general conference. Here are just 2 quotes I found in a very quick search. D. Todd Christofferson recently said, "Neither we nor any other mortal can alter this divine order of matrimony. It is not a human invention. Such marriage is indeed from above, from God, and is as much a part of the plan of happiness as the fall and the atonement." And Dallin H. Oakes recently said, "God's plan, founded on eternal truth, requires that exaltation can be attained only through faithfulness to the covenants of an eternal marriage between a man and a woman in the holy temple, which marriage will ultimately be available to all the faithful." Single older Mormon men might think of themselves as second-class citizens because of comments like that. The article goes on to say, there's been a cultural thing, which I would add stems from words spoken by prophets, seers, and revelators over the pulpit at General Conference, that single men, once they reach a certain age, they've kind of not done what they're supposed to do to get married, and they're kind of not able to contribute. Or there's a perception that men have more control over getting married, so people may speculate as to why they haven't found a spouse. Osler said people ask questions like, is there a sin? Is something going on? And that could cause some singles to feel like they don't belong. But this change might be seen as a signal from church leadership that these Latter-day Saints are normal. Osler said serving a mission is a tender thing that puts a lot of trust in youth. So to extend the same trust to older single men, I think sends a message about how our church leaders feel about them, how God feels about them, that they're needed and that they belong. The interviewer then asked, could the change to mission rules help the stigma? And Richard Osler said, I think it really can. I love Dr. Brené Brown. She says, people are hard to hate close up. Move in. I don't think we hate single people in the church, but we may not have proximity. Most of the proximity we have to people serving are single missionaries in their 20s. But if we have examples of older single people serving, I think with proximity it helps us better support them and understand their contributions and destigmatizes being single. You know what else would help? The leaders of the church not getting up in General Conference and saying things that are causing these feelings. The interviewer then asked, what do older single men offer as missionaries that others might not? And Richard Osler responded, younger people are hitting the mission field at the beginning of their career before it's even started. 40-year-olds and above are hitting the field generally with a career under their belt or in process they can take a pause from. So I see a link between what they've accomplished in their career being used in some way in the mission field to bless other people. So I think this is an improvement that everybody can fully contribute to the church and use their uniqueness to help reach people. I think it also greatly benefits the church because now they can get older experienced men to do things for free that they would otherwise get paid for. The interviewer then asks, this is one of a few changes the church has made for its single members. What needs to happen next? To which Richard Osler responded, I don't see single men serving in prominent callings, church-wide callings, and perhaps that can happen. I don't think that's a change of doctrine. You know why single men don't serve in callings? Because you have to be married to serve in higher up callings. It's why when President Nelson and President Oak's wives passed away, they quickly remarried. The interviewer then asks, because right now they're not allowed to serve as bishops or in high-level callings? Richard Osler responded, yes, in a worldwide diverse church, I think it's good if people see themselves in senior leadership. I think it helps them to feel like they belong and know there are people whose stories reflect their own stories. Which begs the question, if people in the church need to see themselves in senior leadership, they also need to start offering those leadership positions to women. And something that likely will never happen, non-binary or transgender people. And today we will finish with this great quote from Unlearning Together that says, turns out my rebellious spirit was just critical thinking and a refusal to continue being abused. And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.